welcome to the first episode of High Topics. I'm your host, Kellz Hawk, aka the Cannabis Connector. I connect the people to the cannabis and sometimes the cannabis to the people, all on High Topics. So today, we got a really good show coming up. This guest we have, our first guest on the show, is somebody that I knew, brother that I knew since about 2015, 2016. Been in the cannabis industry since then. Fast forward to now, he's the buyer's manager for Hollywood High Grade, which is doing really well. I can say so myself. I've seen the transition since he's been the manager, and patients. A lot of people are just happy with the product that's coming into the shop now. So he's responsible for that. Further ado, I'm gonna give you Paul Hanson right here with us today.
All right. Cool. Thank you for that introduction.
No problem.
And
man.
yeah, it has been quite the ride for the past 4 years. You know, the cannabis industry has been through a lot of transition.
Yeah.
And you were there, right there. Oh yeah.
yeah. You seen it all, man. So let me just ask you. I met you 2015, 16. So before that, was you in the cannabis already, and what got you into the cannabis industry?
So I've been in it for about 12 years now. Basically, when I came from Sacramento, California, moved out here to LA probably about 15 years ago, something like that. But I started in theater. I was just out here trying to do the theater thing and music too, play some low brass instruments. So I was trying to do a little bit of both of that.
Yeah, and that's the same, not to cut you off, but that's the same like me too. I came out here for music from Philadelphia. So, you know, like you come out here and you just try to, you know, you chase a dream, and then you find out, you know, cannabis is where
find
it
out,
is,
yeah,
right?
playing the trombone doesn't pay rent very well.
Yeah,
you know?
exactly, yeah. Neither
they're
is sitting in the studio, like, making mixtapes.
Yeah, we had some successes. There were some successes in there. But yeah, it's like, you know, as a young, struggling artist, you're always trying to find ways to make money because you got to eat.
Right. So yeah, before I get into the next question, I know that you are somewhat of a wine drinker. Not calling you an alcoholic or nothing like that. But I know you like
you're
wine.
the alcoholic.
Well, we're not gonna talk about that right now. We're talking about this cannabis. So I do have some Rebel Coast wine right now. I want to pour for you. You like the sparkling, the pink passion, or what's this right here? It's what is this? It's just the Rebel Coast. It's the non-sparkling.
Let's try that. Give that a try. I'm pretty familiar with this company, actually. It used to come in bottles. I think it still might. But there is no alcohol in these beverages because there can't be, because that actually goes against California law.
You go right there.
For you watching, alcohol, cannabis have got to be separate. There cannot be any, in a licensed shop, you can't
mix it,
any alcohol on the premises, actually, is what the regulations say.
Right.
So you can't even have anything in there. And that includes tinctures that are made with alcohol
and is
too.
there a reason for that? Like, do they emphasize like why you
It's
can't
just
use
politics. It's just politics. They just don't want the two to go together. They think that it's way too impairing that way. And so that's why you see a lot of tinctures that are made of like coconut oil. Things like that.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of that in the like licensed.
That'll be a change
retail.
whenever they do merge them two together. That'll be something different, man.
Maybe.
Definitely, man.
Yeah.
So take us on the history, like, 'cause that's what I want to talk about. Like, you know, we transition now. We're into recreational. You can be 21 and buy it just like you buy alcohol. But I want to talk about before then. Like, let's talk about when it was medical and before. Like, how did it get to that medical phase to even get to where we are now?
So cheers to where we are now, by the way.
Cheers.
We've come a long way,
yeah.
for
We're
sure.
having cannabis wine.
This is cannabis wine? Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah, that's nice. That's good.
That's
It
good.
actually has a wine taste. It's crazy. It tastes like, do I want to say a Pinot or something like that? Like I'm not
a little
like,
bit.
you know,
It's a little bit on the spicier side.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
Little. You know, I don't want to seem like I'm a
exactly.
connoisseur here,
I'm
like
not
notes of the peppermint. And, there's a no.
But
it's
it
good.
definitely has a taste of like I don't taste cannabis. I know a lot of people don't like the the edibles and certain things. Like
It probably has a
medicine taste.
Right. Beverages typically have a low dose of 10 milligrams THC. You can only go to 100 milligrams. That's the That's the law in California. But typically drinks will be around like 5-10 milligrams. I think can does like 2.5.
Yeah, so and they mix like a CBD, THC.
Yep. They have ratio beverages as well. But so going back to your question, a lot of people, what I'll say is like there's a lot of people that know the history of how we got basically to here. Like a lot of people will talk about prohibition and hemp, and you know how like basically like you know you had like the whole paper industry like going against the hemp industry, and you had big alcohol trying to like stop everything. Like everyone kind of like knows a lot of the roadblocks along the way, but what people don't know is how it became medical, and there's a whole story there as to how it became medical, you know, like how, because it's legal now, but there was a long process to go
the process, and people don't know that. People don't understand, you know, people just think about like, I guess into like, what, I want to say like the late 90s?
Yeah, there's a lot of legislation that happened to get to where it was, but it basically started in the 70s is where I would put it. If you have to pinpoint where legislation started, it'd probably be around, early 70s. And what really happened, like if you go back, the guy who started it all, his name is Dennis Peron. So that is the guy, because I remember like years ago, I was sitting at this dispensary I was working at, and I was just kind of thinking like, someone had to have started the first dispensary. Right. And whoever did, there's got to be a story there. Like who did that? And so I started like really looking into it. I'm like, you start doing your Google searches, and Dennis Peron, okay, and he has this ebook out there, and it's not really big though. Like there's not a whole lot of publication about. I mean, there is, I would say, up till like this year, like it's starting to get out there, but he started this all started back in the 70s.
And Dennis Peron, I mean, so was he like advocate, or what was his?
He was a gay hippie. Yeah, so he was living in San Francisco at the time, the Castro district, and you got to look at what you got to go back to the 70s. First of all, he was in the Vietnam War, so you're going to the late 60s here. But he fought there and brought cannabis, just probably a couple duffel bags, out to San Francisco, and he just kind of sold a little bit to his friends, and so I'm not saying that's
like a Boston George story.
Yeah, I'm not saying that's the first time cannabis was in San Francisco, but if you look what's going on. They're basically, you got the Castro district. So during that time, being gay was actually just like you during that time you didn't really talk about it a whole lot, because you're living in a time when it's just, obviously it's just frowned upon. People just didn't talk about it. Yeah, sure. Exactly. And so also San Francisco was going through a giant upheaval. During that time, there's like just all this stuff going on, all these politics, and but then like once you start getting into the 80s, well, now you're getting into the AIDS epidemic, and that's
like the early 80s, right?
Yep, and this is where it kind of all started, was in the 80s during the AIDS epidemic, and
so he was pretty much like somebody that come in and just like, I don't want to say a savior, but just something like he had a vision of like this helps people.
Well, yeah, and so what ended up happening was, during the AIDS epidemic, a lot of the gay community, a lot of their friends are dying left and right, and it's kind of funny we're talking about that right now while we're in the middle of our own little pandemic right now. People are dying, no one knew what was going on, but this isn't their.
Very true.
This is not their first rodeo for the gay community. They've been through this.
Right, yeah.
Okay, so their friends are dying left and right, and no one knows what's going on. It's just like a really sad time, and everyone's scared. And on top of that, you had like the Reagan administration, which is totally against the whole gay community. And there's just no civil rights happening for them whatsoever. You still didn't talk about it. And so at the same time, your friends are dying. And all Dennis Peron knew at that time was that his friends needed help. Like the whole community needed help.
Right.
And so they knew that when you smoked weed, it alleviated a lot of pain. And one kind of symptom of AIDS, you got like withering syndrome, which is one thing. So it's hard to. So that's a side effect of having being HIV/AIDS.
Right.
It's like you just don't want to eat. You can't. And so like
No appetite.
exactly.
Right.
So you want to make yourself eat. So a lot of people would smoke weed because that would give them the
appetite
munchies.
that they needed. So
yeah,
they
and so
could eat.
Exactly. So you had that.
We need to take a quick sip for Daniel.
Yeah.
Dennis, I'm sorry. Take a
Dennis
quick
Peron?
sip for Dennis, yeah.
Sit for him.
So, Dennis Peron, good guy. But I do have a question for you, man. I want to light this up and just join me.
Let's do it.
While you're over there like that, I have a question. I found out about, I'm sure you're familiar with this name. Brownie Mary.
Brownie Mary. That
Tell
was
us about Brownie Mary.
well. Dennis Peron started the first shop. It's the Cannabis Buyers Club. Now he had his whole circle of friends. Brownie Mary would be the one who started basically she's known as who started the edible movement. Because
but before we get into Brownie Mary, I gotta go back. So you're saying Dennis Peron, he opened the very first dispensary.
he opened the first dispensary before it was legal, before it was medical.
Very first.
Very first, yeah.
In San Francisco.
In San Francisco, Castro District, yeah. And it was called the Cannabis Buyers Club.
Yeah. And so this was started specifically for AIDS patients at the time, or
Well, AIDS patients, people that had any kind of issues whatsoever, glaucoma, cancer, like anything, because it's a medicine, is what cannabis is, and he knew that, and so he was just trying to treat. The majority was AIDS patients at that
and this
time.
was what year around? What year was this that he opened? This?
We're all through the '80s, right? Like
I just found it so crazy. That's like he opened that in the '80s. He had people backing him that it was helping them, and that's back in the '80s. And
it changed location. Yeah, there was a time it was called the Big Top, and that was when it was at a restaurant. And they had the whole dispensary above this restaurant, but it's not like one specific year. This thing was open for a while, and it was gigantic. It was a huge building. It had like multiple stories, and we're talking like about 200 people probably worked there. But it wasn't just like workers; it was a community. So people helped each other out. Like if you wanted a haircut, you would go there. Like there was a floor where people, there were beds. Like you could, people were donate their time to give haircuts, things like that. It was just like a community effort. Like everyone,
And that's where the donation term in the industry came from.
Well, so because legally you can't, it wouldn't be a sale. It'd be a donation because we're not we're not even in the medical area yet, and let alone recreational. So these, they were donations, and so that's what buyers clubs were at the time, is that they would accept donations for a membership. You'd have a membership to these clubs. Which is why even to this day, when you go get your doctor's rec, that's like your membership card, So
that's almost something that had like you kind of want to just have that just for knowing that, like just like the membership card, because even when I first moved out here, the first thing I did before I even changed my ID, first thing I did was get a cannabis card. When I went back home, it's just showing that off, having like a legitimate cannabis club card, because now they have it in Philadelphia, but it's just like before then it was like.
But you have to go back and it's like, well, how did we get there? So it's like, how did this become medical? Well, it's like the whole thing that happened was going back to what I was talking about, like AIDS patients dying left and right, and they were saving lives, is what they were doing, because they were giving people this medicinal marijuana. And what they realized is there's a thing in the Constitution where you can break a law if you're saving a life. So that was the whole argument. That's where it was. And so, what they did was they started an initiative. Now, an initiative, you can put anything on a ballot if you get enough signatures. So they did. So they started.
The averages hippie, like they knew how to put words together.
These weren't just these guys weren't dumb at all.
Yeah,
these guys knew how to write legislation. These were
you have to. You going up against the government right now.
Right. Yeah. And so they basically, I'd say a couple of their initiatives failed at first. They didn't get enough signatures. Of course, during that time, a lot of people saw them as crazy. Like, these guys are trying to like put marijuana on a ballot for people, but people wanted it. Yeah. Like that's the thing. Like, people actually wanted this to happen, and so.
But at the time, it's just like not even in the whole California. This is just San Francisco.
This is San Francisco.
So outside, it's like people looking at them like you're crazy. So like that's why them having them words, like you said, and the people backing them.
And you're talking, you need hundreds of thousands of signatures within a time frame too. Like you got to deliver these signatures within a matter of months here, and so it's like, well, how do you do that? And so it's like you got to get the word out. So how do you do that? Well, they thought about that too, and they realized that they need the media.
Yeah.
Well, it's like, well, okay, so. How do you get how do you get your story in the media? Well, they realized that they needed to get arrested, because if they got arrested, that would make it in the news for what they were doing. That's a story.
Yeah,
these were outlaws, is what they were. These were gay hippie outlaws, and they changed everything. Like they knew that they were going to get arrested, and they got arrested dozens of times. And yeah.
I feel like this story is just definitely, because I'm learning so much just hearing about a lot of this stuff. I feel like it definitely should be more accessible. Like, people should know about these stories. Like these people getting into like Brownie Mary. Her. What was she like in the hospitals or like like,
yeah, she was delivering brownies to patients that were suffering in hospitals. That was her whole thing, and she got busted for that. And she's this really old lady. She's probably in her 80s, 70s, 80s. And she is such a sweet lady doing this. And so when she's in the news, that's tugging on everyone's heartstrings. They're actually on her side.
Yeah,
so now you're riling up.
An 80-year-old lady in handcuffs. What did she do?
Exactly. Yeah. She's bringing some pot brownies to people that are suffering in hospitals. What are we doing here?
To people that's sick. She's giving brownies to people that's sick. She's helping people, and you want to put her in handcuffs.
They played on people's emotions, and it was very intelligent at that time. And really, if you want to know how they really got like all this kind of all comes together, is they originally just like want to shoot a commercial. So, and it was going to be a fake commercial. They wanted to make this commercial about a cannabis club.
Yeah.
And they basically just wanted their media friends to air it, because they thought that would be so crazy if a commercial during the 80s, early 90s, and you're making a commercial about selling marijuana, medical marijuana. That is insane, and that's going to get you arrested, right? But that's going to put so much attention on it. So they did. Yeah. So they're like, we're going to shoot this commercial. It's not going to be real. We don't actually have a club here. We're just going to shoot this commercial. And so they did. And they filmed this whole thing. You can even find it on YouTube. It's on there. But he's just sitting at a table just like, hi, I'm Dennis Peron, and this is the Cannabis Buyers Club. I sell weed. Something like, he does it better.
Did he get arrested for that, or did they?
Well, what happened was they filmed this whole fake commercial where they're living, and called some of their media buddies, said, hey, can you just air this? And they did. And so this thing airs, and there's waiting there, as this thing's airing. There's like, we're gonna get arrested. They're all excited about it.
It's coming.
It's coming. And so, but then the phone rings. And they're like, okay, so they pick up the phone, hey, who's this? Well, it was a AIDS patient who's like, hey, are you guys for real? And they're like, well, yeah, we do sell weed, but yeah. And they're like, okay, well, I need to come buy some because I need some. So phone rings again.
Another patient.
Hey, are you guys for real? Yeah. Yeah, we sell weed. Come to our little club. Phone keeps ringing and ringing. People took this seriously, and that's when they knew, like, we got to make this serious.
We own something.
So, enter the Cannabis Buyers Club. That's how it kind of started from there. But yeah, it was lots of like media stunts like that happened, and then eventually, George Soros, richest man in the world, he gets a hold of this story and decides to just.
What do you think made him like? What was? Let's like talk about like what did you think got him to like? I want to help.
Well, he's very liberal.
Okay.
Yeah, the stories that I've read and the interviews that I've done with Dennis Peron and his friends himself, we didn't really get that far into George Soros, but he definitely was.
Let's just drink to that, man.
Let's drink to that.
You got to do an interview. You met Dennis Peron.
Yes.
I mean, that's a big deal, man.
Yeah, that was a very cool experience.
Definitely.
One of the sweetest, nicest guys you'd ever meet. Just such a gentle personality. Like, I can't even tell you. Unfortunately, he passed away years ago, before the recreational movement, and people say he kind of died.
I'm surprised I didn't hear of a Dennis Peron OG. Just something that like has I don't hear anybody kind of like.
You don't. Yeah. You hear Jack Harrer. Everyone knows that. But yeah, not a lot of people know about Dennis Peron. Yeah. And he definitely.
Or Brownie Mary.
She's part of the whole story too, and there's others too. And what's funny is, like, when I interviewed them, and this was probably like 5 years ago.
Did you interview Brownie Mary too? Or
no, she's been long past.
Well, okay.
Yeah. Rest in power to her.
Yeah,
but she was a big part of it too. And but 5 years ago, when I was interviewing them, because I was trying to make a film about this whole thing, was when I discovered this whole story. I was like, how is this not same as you? How is this not out there? How does people just not know about this? And I was talking to them like, hey, like, I want to make your movie. Because at that time, I was making a little independent film, and I was also working in cannabis. I kind of pitched it to them like, hey, guys, if anyone's going to do this, it should be me. Yeah. Let me give this a shot. And so a lot of interviews happened. But yeah, unfortunately, after his passing, it made things really difficult to kind of like communicate with the family. I wanted to give them the respect and the space too. And someone made the Museum of Weed in Los Angeles. Like right before the pandemic.
Yeah, I remember that. I remember that.
Yeah, and they recreated the whole Cannabis Buyers Club, and actually his husband went there to help them recreate the whole thing. So hopefully, once that whole thing opens back up, you've got to check that out. All the viewers, you guys have got to check out.
Yeah. What was it? The Museum of
Weed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I remember.
It walks you through the whole history. It's a crazy thing.
I didn't get a chance to get in there. I never got to go, but I definitely remember everybody coming to the shop like, I'm going to the Museum of Weed. Mm-hmm. I'm about to try this lift ticket right here.
Yeah. Is that fresh baked? Does it say fresh baked on there?
That's exactly what it says. And I know so am I about
Fresh
to...
Bakes are a very good company. Yeah.
What's going on? So George Soros, that's where we left off. That's what we talking about.
Yeah, he made the New York Times happen. So once the story came out in the New York Times, then it's like it was just over at that point. Because now you have the media on your side. Yeah. Now the media has the people. It's like, and so I mean, I'm really like summarizing.
George Soros, would you say like? It would have eventually happened. It just wouldn't have happened probably right then and there. Like he was the big.
It might have. It wouldn't have happened the same. I mean, that's such a big thing to happen, But knowing them and how strong their minds are, Dennis, Jonathan, it's like they would have found a way. They would have found a way.
Yeah. But that was just like that was a good. That was still like a gift from that.
Yeah.
So we're gonna light this one for George.
Yeah, light one for Soros. But I mean, I'm really like
you see that light.
I'm jumping around. I'm summarizing. There's so much more to this story. It's all in a book.
Yeah, I don't think this story can be told. You can't talk about all this in like.
You would have to take a time frame of the whole story because you're talking about decades here.
Yeah. But I'm sure people watching this, they're gonna like, you're gonna put them into a rabbit hole that they're gonna. I'm talking about like they're interested now. Like I want to know more about exactly these people, these names. Yeah. Brownie Mary. I know. I want to know about these people. Like you said, Dennis Peron. Like that's the first dispensary. I don't think a cannabis club like. That's going over people's heads until they really look into it and watch.
Right. But it's like, it just goes back to the question, how did we get here? And this is how we became medical and it all ends, or this is not where it ends, but it all leads up to Prop 215 passed in 1996. That's the Compassionate Use Act. That's where everything became medicinal, where you had to have a doctor's rec.
Yeah.
think, that's where it starts coming in, where it's like you're not paying for any marijuana, it's a donation.
Yeah. I remember,
these are this is your medication. Staple the
out
bag.
I came out here in 2003. The first time I ever came to California to shoot a music video. It wasn't my music video. It was some of my fellow people from Philadelphia. But anyway, I remember we was at the hotel and we got marijuana delivered to us. And I remember it being the craziest thing. Like, he came over, he opened his bag, he had Ace Force to like take a look at, and I was like, yo, you acting like this legal. And then he said, hold up, let me show you something. He went in his other bag and he pulled out a folder. At this time, it was like a whole sheet. So it was like, and it was just like him having this, pretty much like, yeah, I can do this. Like, I'm fine. I was like, I never seen nothing like it. But I was like, yeah, that's
holding the Constitution.
Yeah,
Yes, the Constitution.
I took an eighth of that White Widow and I enjoyed it. But yeah, that was like when I noticed. I'm like, California is something different.
Yeah, that's it. Everything starts in California.
Yeah.
If we look at anything that ever happens, I mean,
Yes. Yeah,
So goes California, so goes the world.
The West Coast.
But yeah, I mean, that's the story, like, in a small nutshell.
Yeah.
There is so much more to it, and it just gets crazier and crazier. Just the things that they went through, going up against the DEA, and that, now they were being formed during that time. The DEA was just as confused and scrambling, trying to figure out who they were at the time. And it's just a whole lot happening all at once.
So, let me ask you this: if you, where we are now, we say Dennis and Brownie Mary, would you think they would be happy or somewhat, would they be proud of the
No, I don't think so.
Wow. Why is that?
Because I remember Dennis would talk about this before he passed, and this is right around when recreational happened, 2018. They kind of felt like everything was being undone, all their work, because their belief, and this is my belief as well, that everyone should have access to. There shouldn't be a price on this. It's alternative medicine. This is the pharmaceutical world right now. It's like, first of all, arguably, I don't know. I'm not an expert. Is it dangerous? A lot of it is. People OD on it. You know what I mean? It's addictive. There's a lot of
shit they go on.
Exactly, and it's also unaffordable. We live in a nation where our healthcare system is completely screwed up.
Yeah.
And it's really hard to afford medicine for the average person, and cannabis is the alternative to that, which is why it's alternative.
The thing is, since I've been in the industry, I've had people that come in the shop and they say stuff like, this helps my grandmother or my mother, or she wasn't moving or she wasn't doing this, and now that we using this product, she can move her. It's just like you hear somewhat miracle stories, but they just I don't want to say swept under the rug. It's just like nobody really does. In the cannabis industry, it's also not for recognition either. It's genuine. We here to help.
Well, that's why it's federally illegal still. Yeah. It's still not recognized by the federal government. Right. I believe that's going to change this year. We'll see. Maybe next year.
And then it's
maybe
actually
next year.
Undone.
Going back, it's just that's the whole thing. All that Prop 64 was, which was passed 2018, where we're at, legalization, is just taxes and regulation.
Yeah.
The weed hasn't changed. Nothing else has changed. I mean, it gets tested by laboratories, and that's great. Actually, that is one good part about it, is that, a lot of farmers were using pesticides, fungicides, things that were, harmful, things that change chemical composition. When you light it with fire, it can turn into an arsenic, things like myclobutanol. That's just an example of one chemical component of a pesticide that can damage your lungs, and so now everything's lab tested, so that's good. But with the taxes, you start adding excise taxes. There's two now. There's state and city. Where in California it's 34.5% taxes. That's unnecessary.
Yeah.
Excise taxes are literally developed.
And then if it becomes federal legal, they're gonna add more taxes.
They might. I mean, of course they will.
Yeah,
we know.
Yeah, everybody got to get something.
Yeah, but so now you're starting to stray away from why we got here, and all the work that Dennis Peron did. This is supposed to be for everybody. His whole motto was all use is medical use. And what he meant by that is like, even if you're not sick, even if you're not in pain, and you want to smoke a joint or you want to smoke some weed, and you get a little bit high, well, his theory is that you're coming from a lower place to a little bit happier place. Well, that's medicinal.
Right.
That's medicine. Yeah. Whether or not you knew it, you wanted to feel better. So that's medicinal. Now you can use that argument with alcohol. You can use that. But now you start getting, but is alcohol medicinal? It can be. It arguably can be. And this is, an alternative. I know a lot of alcoholics have switched over to cannabis and it saved their life.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Same with painkillers.
I know a lot of people that was like, even with the this right here, this cannabis syrup. I know a lot of people that was drinking other things and switched over to this, and it was like it's a lifesaver. You know what I'm saying? Like, and that's the good thing to have like this. That's what cannabis is about at the end of the day. It's about bringing you to a higher place.
But now I start questioning myself because now I'm just like, well, maybe they would, if you look at things are just becoming more and more accepted, like grandma's willing to try it now, because it's just a little more mainstream. So I don't know, maybe it is, becoming more accepted by the general public. True. So that it's like, I really do. I would love if Dennis Peron was still alive and he was at this table, that would be a great question for him. But before he passed, he did not see any positivity from what was going on with Prop 64. They combed through the whole bill, the whole thing, and they just tore it up. They're just like, this is bullshit.
Because even with the edibles, let's just get out of all right, some people are mad. That's just like I'm a person that's mad that the edibles not as strong they are just because I can't enjoy. I got to take more. But it's people that like we were just talking about, that's in pain that is using them 1,000 milligram edibles because it helped them, and now they gotta buy. They come in the shop and they spending like all this money on
because everything's capped
at 1,000.
Everything's capped at 100 milligrams now. So those. Someone who was eating a 1,000 milligram, that's a lot, by the way. But some people, that's what they need. Well, now you got to eat 10 of those brownies. That's a lot of calories. That's a lot of sugar.
Exactly. It's like
diabetics are now struggling with that, because you got to watch your blood sugar at that point. It's like, so there's a lot of things that I would say officials just did not consider when they were. Now this thing was jammed through. This thing had a lot of money. I'm talking about Prop 64.
It was because I remember, and I voted no. Mm-hmm. I didn't want. I was at that time. I was like wanting it to stay medical. Yeah, I was. Yeah.
Some of us knew what was that it was just taxes coming in. That's and they had so many millions of dollars behind that campaign. There was no stopping this whatsoever. So. And they throw the word legalization on it. Yeah, everyone. That's a nice word. But it wasn't legalization. It has been legal. Yeah. So, that's where we stand. I mean, it's not all bad.
No, it's not. It's not all bad because I like, the fact that, like you got people that come to California just for the experience. Like they go to Colorado, it's an experience too. Like, so it opens a door where you don't have to come in town, go get a medical card. Because that could be a hassle too, like if you're not from here. Yep. So, it has its pros and cons. And, we try to make do with it. Yeah. And so now that we back, speed up into now, what's going on now? Now it's a whole game with vendors.
I deal with a lot of vendors.
So talk about that. What's the whole?
Well, now it's competition. Yeah. Because it's like to be a licensed manufacturer, licensed retailer, licensed
Oh yeah,
anything.
before we go into that, my bad. The whole growing thing. Just that switch to the props changed the growers. You know how everything. When we were in the shops, you had a grow room. You would come, you weigh in your eighths. The bud tenders weigh in the eighths. Now everything comes packaged.
Everything's prepackaged now.
Liquor,
yeah.
Like alcohol, everything is prepackaged. So you want an eighth, it's packaged already. The bud tender is not like, oh, I remember you. Let me throw you a little 0.5 in there. That don't exist no more.
Yep.
Or like the new patients, the first time patients, you might get one of these, a pre-roll, a gram. You leaving out with a whole bag. And now it's just like, we'll take 10% off the tax.
Track and trace. The government wants to know where every bit. They want their tax dollars. They want to make sure that everything you get is getting sold. Nothing's being given away. And now they recently kind of did bring back the compassionate use thing where it's like, there's a lot of stipulation you have to go through to give away anything free, but you have to at least pay the tax on it. Yeah. They want their taxes.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, so with the growing, talk about that. Like you remember seeing like the trimmers and everything that used to go on, like when it finally, was a medical game, and like I believe you might have did, it's like you might have, the secret urban legend has it that Paul might have one of the green thumbs in high grade at the time. Was growing some of the good green back then, like
Yes.
I remember you coming out just keefed up and just like, dude, I'm gonna get all this off my clothes, man.
Just gotta roll it up.
Yeah.
I was a cultivator for a while there for large scale grows. And all that's changed as well. And any cultivator, any owner will tell you who, the struggles you have to go through now just to even have a cultivation. The taxes, the regulations, all that has completely changed. And you now have to have all your product tested, and that costs money too. None of that's free. And they take a large chunk of your crop when they have it tested. And on top of that, the labs, they're not all the same. So they all, their SOPs are all a little different. So as what we're finding out is that something that tests at let's just take THC percentage, something that tests at a certain number isn't testing the same at lab B.
Right.
Isn't testing the same at lab C. People have done these experiments already. So you get that problem. That's just one problem. But it's definitely affecting the cultivation world. It's affecting the entire cannabis industry. It's in its infancy. It's going to take years until we see any stabilization.
Yeah, and then that's just not what, like you said, with Dennis and Mary, what they got into it for was it was to help people.
Exactly.
And this is not helping people.
No.
Yeah. So now I understand. I see why you would say like he definitely wouldn't be happy with what's going on.
Right. Yeah. That's exactly what it is. And but not everything is
not everything. It's always a silver line.
There's just a lot of work to do. Yeah. Is what it is, and it's just most important that we move towards a direction where there's just more safe access. That's the, I would say, the ultimate goal is in the cannabis industry for people who are still in the medical mindset, such as myself. It's like we want as many people as possible to have safe access.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I like that. Safe access for all.
To alternative medicine.
Yeah. So I guess like one of my last questions before we wrap it up. If you were able to choose, like, what would you rather have, like, and I kind of think I know your answer, but what would you rather have, recreational or medical?
Medical. just don't even have to think about
Yeah,
that.
yeah. Nah, yeah.
I mean,
sure,
but I mean, what I really want is just things to,
safe
change.
access.
I think like any business owner in the cannabis industry, which I am not,
Right.
I've managed many companies and I've just seen the thing inside out for what it is. Yeah, they just wanted to ease up. But I mean, California in particular is known for having heavy regulations.
Yeah.
Now, myself, I'm not against regulations, but there is a line that can be crossed. And
Are the regulations different from in Colorado and just in here?
Yeah, each state. So for the states that have legalized, each one is a little different. A lot of them took some things from California, I would say, but it just
in
depends.
Nevada too, right? Vegas.
A lot of them are a lot more relaxed than California. Some are a little stricter. Like it's actually looking like Montana is. They're just now coming out with their regulations, and it's looking a lot like California. It's like 28-gram cap, things like caps on THC milligram in edibles, same as California.
Yeah. So 28-gram cap. That just means like you can't, if you're not a medical patient, if you're just recreational, you can only buy ounces. That's per day, right?
Right.
Like,
well, you can only have 28 grams.
28 grams on you.
Right.
So that means like, and that's like edibles, drink. That's like everything.
Well, edibles is different because then you're getting into more like the concentrate part of it. But same with like cartridges, tinctures. There's a lot of gray area there. I mean, it's pretty laid out. It's 8 grams of concentrate. When we're talking about California,
right.
Other states, I don't know off the top of my head what exactly they're doing, but it's pretty much a lot of them are doing the same thing California are. Yeah. I mean,
so it pretty much is. We're gonna get there. With at some point, every state soon is gonna have.
I think so.
A marijuana shop, and the shops started in San Francisco.
That's where it all started.
The very first Buyers Club.
Castro District. Yes.
Yeah. That's another toast to that.
Yeah. Cheers to that progress.
Yes. So I think that's it, man. I think you got anything you want to say before we wrap it up? I know we didn't cover near as much as we could cover on this subject.
Right.
Anything else you want to add?
I mean, not a whole lot. It's just like if anyone was ever interested more in the legacy of Dennis Peron and what he did, the information is out there. You can Google it. He has a book, Memoirs of Dennis Peron: How a Gay Hippie Legalized Marijuana. It's a Kindle. It's an ebook, but it's all there.
Yeah.
And I'm just really hoping that more and more people hear this story and talk about it more. And I believe that PAX did actually a 20-minute documentary on YouTube about it. You can look that up. You type PAX, P-A-X, Dennis Peron. You can see like a little 20-minute documentary there. Very well done too. But yeah, I mean, I'm just really excited about your show too. I'm so happy that you had me here.
I appreciate you coming out, man. Yeah. Like, this was like a dope first episode, opening up the introduction of. Excuse me. Open up the introduction of. What's the name of this show? I'm fried already, man.
We're on Hot Topics.
Hot Topics. Yeah, Hot Topics. We'll open up the first episode of Hot Topics, the Cannabis Connector. I just connected cannabis. I connected you to Paul Hanson. He just gave us a really good one-on-one on the medical aspects of how everything got to medical. So those of you who didn't know about Dennis Peron, you didn't know about Brownie Mary, and just a couple people we didn't mention, but specifically those two. Definitely, I'm glad that you brought that to the light. We need to talk about it more because they need to know about these people.
Yeah, there's a lot more of them too, but that's a good start.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Hot Topics.
Hot Topics.